All right then, how are you doing, my cookies? Oh, shush. Now then, allow us an opportunity to begin to explain the ideas that we would like to share with you today about the first level of mastery, called the Cryptic. Before we go into some of the details, allow us for a moment to explain something that is a little bit different than what you might typically be thinking about when you think about the different forms of life upon the planet. In our time, what you call 700 years of your future, what we call upline, we have gone through the arrival of the hybrids, the deconstruction and restoration of the planet in many different areas. Sea levels have risen somewhat. So many of the cities that you may be familiar with on your coasts are now ports and have reconstructed themselves in a variety of ways. And many areas on your planet that you're familiar with now are no longer above the surface of the sea. One such area is what you are in your area called Florida, which now lies under the water and is a large area of marsh. But the idea is that it has now been cultivated by many of those who have learned to harvest and grow food upon the surface of the sea in a variety of collectives, in different kinds of pods where they desalinate the water and use it for the growing of many different forms of plants. These kinds of clusters exist now in a variety of places around the planet in my time, and take advantage of our understanding of the cycles of nature in a variety of very efficient ways. So this is one of the changes that will be experienced upline in your future upon your planet when you go back to something that is a little bit more natural where you began. But first and foremost, we would like to explain the reversal of some of the patterns that you have ensconced in your minds about what you think of the different expressions of life on your planet. For many of you, for many, many years, have been thinking, well, and we know you call them the kingdoms, and so we'll use that term for now, even though that is a term we no longer use. But the idea of the kingdoms, you talk about the idea of the animal kingdom, and you talk about the idea of the plant kingdom, and you talk about the idea of the mineral kingdom. But you usually think of these things as a hierarchy, starting with yourselves and going into the animals and going into the plants and going into the minerals. And in fact, it's exactly the reverse. For the mineral kingdom is on top, in a sense, because your whole planet is made of minerals. The earth is a mineral kingdom. Gaia and the consciousness of the earth contains the idea of chemistry and minerals and elements and how they combine and recombine. So they determine the state of being of the entire planet. In that sense, the minerals rule the earth. And then the extensions of that and the recombination of the minerals brings you the idea of the plants that extend like antennas from the ground, where the seeds are planted and allow the earth to reach out to the cosmos through those antennae. And the plants also determine many of the aspects of life upon the earth. They are the first level of life as you understand life to some degree. But they are very, very alien to you. They exist in a very different way, in a very diversified way from what you understand yourselves to be as the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. Because they don't necessarily exhibit exactly the traits that you have. And so for many years, you have not necessarily recognized their abilities, although you're beginning to do so now. But you must understand that it is the plants that, again, are the ones that control the idea of all of the life on earth. You do not. The plants do. They have their own community, and the way they regulate things in nature, in life, determines everything that you experience as a human. Plants, many of you do not know, can actually see you, literally see you. For every single cell in the leaves of many plants are actually small lenses that allow them to interpret images of light and shadow. And they can thus have eyes everywhere. And so when you walk through a glade and you walk through a forest, they're looking at you. They're really looking at you. For this is how they can also mimic other things. And how they do many of the things they do is because they have more senses than you think. It's just that they don't necessarily have it centralized in the way that you do, in your brain and on your head with your eyes. And the idea of their root systems is every bit as complicated as the synapses in your brain, so they think with their feet. And their roots are connected to other roots of other plants, and you understand that plants are not necessarily exactly individuals in the way that you are, but they are colonies in many cases where their roots are all connected by the mycelial fungal networks under the ground that allow them to pass nutrients and information to one another where and when they need to balance themselves out around the entire planet. So you must understand that the way in which it's important for you in the animal kingdom and the human kingdom to connect to nature in a variety of ways is to really first understand that the plants are the ones that have created the environment for you to be able to thrive. And they're the ones that balance the environment for you so that you can thrive and do many of the things that you do. They are the ones that determine the way the environment and the way things work around the planet in terms of balancing the weather and many other aspects of your world. They're the ones, again, I'm just using the colloquialism, they're the ones that are running the planet, not you. Now, the idea is you are in and can be in a much greater symbiosis with them by connecting in the ways that we will be talking about this day of your time. And in forming this kind of symbiotic connection with them more and more strongly, you can then work in harmony with them to be stewards of the world, stewards of the planet along with them, for you're not above them. You can be equals with them and understand how everything is interconnected and start understanding whole systems, because it is the segregation and separation and compartmentalization of yourselves that have allowed you to feel so disconnected from your natural beings, your natural selves. But when you can start seeing things and understanding things as the plants do in whole systems, as nature creates it to be, then you will understand how you fit in, how you can symbiotically blend with them, and how you can have more of the synchronicity of interactions with them. And this can grow day by day. Now, after we discuss some of these ideas of the first stage, the first level of mastery in becoming a cryptic, where you can talk to the plants and hear the plants and start really communing with nature in that way, we will then, in successive chapters, also be talking about how you can dig deeply into the communication with minerals, dig deeply into the communication with animals, and dig deeply into your communication with nature spirits. But there is a thing we would like to say about the nature spirits at the moment before we continue. And that is you have to understand truly what their nature is, because you have the idea, at least to some degree, that there is a collective consciousness that you call Gaia of the earth. And it is an energy form. It does have an energy component. What sometimes the messenger you call Bashar has called electromagnetic energy. Fancy title. But the idea is that it is a substance of sorts. And the nature spirits can take what appears to be physical form, but they are not really physical in the way that you are. They are taking advantage of this plastic energy to give themselves temporary bodies, to present themselves in your world in the way that you would recognize and understand as a being. But they can blend back in and disappear back in to that ocean of electromagnetic energy. That is how they can come and go and disappear and appear magically before your eyes. And is also why they can be shapeshifters, because they can present themselves in many ways in that electromagnetic energy and crystallize it temporarily into what you would call a physical form of their liking, whatever it is that is most reflective of the agenda they may have in their agreements and communications with any of you. So you will understand that while they have a quasi-physical reality of their own, and while they have their own way of relating to one another in a variety of ways that you may not even be able to imagine yet, but we will talk about at some point, you can realize that you can begin to invite them more and more, as was happening in the past, downline in your past, where you interacted with them in a more natural way and they were willing to present themselves to you that way in whatever physical form worked at the moment that would be most representative of the dialogue they needed to have with you and that you needed to have with them. So, after we discuss this, we will be open to having a little bit of dialogue with each of you if you wish, answering some questions that have to do with what we're talking about today, or things that have to do with the hybrids upline in my timeline 700 years in your future, or a variety of other topics and subjects that we are happy to discuss with you. But first and foremost, after we complete this interaction with you today, I will have a little bit of a surprise announcement for you. And this will be a lovely thing to share with you because it is way ahead of when this will happen. So we are giving you what you call a sneak peek. We are allowed to do this today, and we are very grateful and appreciative that we have been given this particular opportunity to share that information with you. For it's very important, even though it hasn't happened yet, it is very important with what's happening on Earth today. And it will also be very important for determining exactly what parallel version of Earth each and every one of you decide you're going to experience upline in your future. But before we get there, allow us now to dig a little bit more deeply into the idea of the first level of mastery in becoming a cryptic. And this will necessitate that those that are excited and passionate about taking that path and really beginning to understand how to get into that first level of mastery, you're going to need to spend a lot more time among the trees, out in nature. And the first thing to do is to find a tree that attracts you. Now, first and foremost, remember that the idea of the redwoods and the pines and those kinds of trees are the ambassadors of the plant kingdom to your world, to your human beings. So you can find them, but you can also find a tree that works for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a redwood or a pine, but they are the ones who are tasked in that sense among themselves with communing and communicating with the different animal kingdoms as ambassadors and as delegates in that way. Nevertheless, find the tree that works for you, and the more natural, the better. The more you can lose yourself and be surrounded by the trees, the better. Now, the first thing to do is understand, it's very important that we understand that you may have to go to another place on your planet to do this if you're not finding the correct scenario in your particular area. It is very important in this first level of mastery and in this first stage that you go and find a tree that attracts you that is in some way, shape, or form within earshot or within sight of a stream or a brook or a river. Running water is very important for this first step. Where you are in an area where the trees have the ability to drink deeply of this water that is nearby and flowing through them. Because what you're going to be doing in this first stage of becoming a cryptic and the first level of mastery is you're going to be sitting between the tree and the river. Position yourself somewhere where you are comfortable going out in nature in this way, with the tree at your back and the river in front of you, whatever stream it may be, that you can hear the water burbling along in some way, shape, or form. And with your back to the tree, whether you're actually leaning against it or not, doesn't matter, but with your back to the tree and the river in front of you, you're going to allow yourself to be quiet for a moment, and you're going to allow yourself to hear the wind in the leaves and the branches of the tree and rustling them gently and softly, or perhaps a little bit more strongly depending upon the wind of the day. And you're going to allow that sound of the wind through the tree and the grove in which you are ensconced and the sound of the river and the water and the babbling of the brook to begin to mingle together in the center point that you have positioned yourself in. And as you begin to sit there in that meditative and open state, as you begin to hear and blend the sound of the trees and the rustling of the leaves and the wind and the babbling of the brook or the rushing of the waters, then there is going to be in that center point within you, as you blend these things together in your imagination, a third sound that you will introduce into that. And that third sound, whether you can actually literally physically hear it or not, doesn't matter, you can imagine it, will be the sound of your beating heart. So as you sit there and become calm, and you hear the wind through the trees and the babbling of the brook, then you bring into that orchestration the beating of your heart that is calm and rhythmic, along with the sound of your breath. So you are producing two sounds. The tree and the brook are producing two sounds. And now you have this quatrain. You have this quadrant. You have this four-corner sound that you are creating, that you yourself with your breath are mimicking the wind through the trees. And you yourself with the beating of your heart are mimicking the babbling of the brook as the water cascades over the pebbles and the rocks. And you are then exemplifying and reflecting those two sounds within yourself and bringing that all together in a beautiful symphony within yourself in that way. And allow yourself to experience this for no less than 15 of your minutes, so that in those 15 of your minutes, your brain will start to entrain to those sounds, to that state of being, and will begin to rewire your brain to accept in and receive and allow you to become a better antenna for communication from the trees, for communication from the water, for communication from your heart, for communication from your breath, blending them all together into one beautiful sound, one beautiful song, and just sit with that and allow it to sink in. So that when you decide then to get up and begin to take a journey through the forest, you will bring that tone, you will bring that sound, you will bring that symphony with you and carry that with you, no matter where you are from that point forward. It will create a specific state for you that will allow you more affinity with nature. This is the first step. It is the step that I have gone through. It is the step that all cryptics go through, and it will bring you into not only more communion with nature in that way as the first step on that journey, but it will also, because time is irrelevant, begin to bond you with all cryptics, including myself. For we will reinforce that for you, for we are of a kind, and we know no matter whether upline or downline, where and when you are, we will be there for you energetically, in soul and spirit, reinforcing and magnifying and amplifying your ability to connect into our stream of consciousness so that you yourself may understand what it means to be a cryptic in the first level of mastery. You have just begun this journey for those who are passionate about doing so. And then we're not in any way, shape, or form implying that all of you have to be. But for those to whom you gravitate in this vibration, in this state of being, we welcome you into this world and into this reality that is the world of the cryptic. For it is quite magical, and many, many more things can happen in this world. You have just begun this journey.